Hey, it's Johnny King, and thank you for coming by my YouTube channel for Level Up Lifestyle. But to get right into it, I want to support you in creating your life plan, to help you create a vision, a purpose, and goals for your life. Before we do that, I want to tell you a little story, though. I'll never forget the day I was driving to see my mother. She had been ill for a while, and I was going to see her and visit her after work, as I did every single day there for several months, when I got the call from my father. And he said, "Your mother just stopped breathing. She's no longer with us. Please turn around and come back home." Oh, talk about one of those surreal moments, right? Like everything just went numb. And so sure enough, I turned around the car and drove home, and the next week or two again were just kind of a blur. Just not something that you envisioned for your life. I had always envisioned my mom being at my wedding, being a great grandmother to my future children, just being around. I was very close with my mother. So when she was gone, it definitely threw my life for a loop, to say the least. It was kind of the very first thing in my life as an adult that didn't go as I really hoped it would. So why I bring that up is because it couldn't be more clear as I saw her, her health deteriorate very quickly there in 2006, that she created her vision for family, without a doubt. She got everything that she wanted. She had 5 of us children. Took us to some of the most fun places in the United States on vacations, on road trips. We were put in very, very wonderful schools and things like that. But at the end of the day, what she didn't have a very clear vision for was her health. And so the very first thing that you must do, if you have not done it before, is to create a vision, okay? Creating a vision is so important. As the good book says, the Bible, when people don't have a vision, they perish. And so it couldn't be more clear over this last decade, as I've done a lot of physical and then emotional health coaching, that most of my clients who really, really struggle in the area of physical health struggle with having a vision. They have a vision of kind of their current reality and all the reasons as to, the deterioration of their health. And yet, in the end of the day, they don't have a very clear vision of their newfound health that they're moving towards, And so when my mom passed away, I was angry. I was angry at the world. I was angry at my dad. I was angry at myself. I was angry just, as people can often be through the various stages of grief. And so I started asking why. Why did this happen to me? Why did she seemingly give up? I didn't see a whole lot of fight in my mom, which ultimately isn't true. I just, didn't have a whole lot of empathy at the time because I was angry and I had a lot of my own baggage, right? So that being said, I started diving in. My father subsequently, over the next couple of years, lost 120 pounds. And so I started asking, why did you do this now after she passed away, when they were on every, weight loss program under the sun as long as I could remember growing up, and yet none of them really stuck. And, it became very clear for my father, he created a very, very clear why. He created a very clear purpose and vision for the next chapter of his life after my mother. And he told me he was not convinced that anyone would want to love a man that was 320 pounds. And so that became his leverage, and he changed. Now, I started interviewing a lot of Biggest Loser contestants, because that was a hot show at the time. Several of them became my clients. I started looking at the people who are extremely successful at creating lifelong health, right? And for most individuals, when you see someone maybe be a family member or a friend makes some type of lifestyle shift, right? And it sticks. Most people ask, how'd you do it? They get to the how. They actually leapfrog over the question of purpose and vision and why. Because unfortunately, I think subconsciously we know that that person's why will most likely not be our why. And it's a lot harder to find that why. It's a lot easier to say, oh, you just did that program, or you're doing paleo or keto or whatever, I'm going to do that program. And then when that fails, then we make up a story about, oh, I guess that just wasn't the program for me. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that resonates at all for you, but for me, I started even looking at me, my own, experience of why have I taken my health so seriously? And it has a lot to do with the pain that I grew up with two overweight parents that weren't really physically involved in my life and were always kind of on the sideline or sitting in the shade in their lawn chairs telling their kids to go have fun, right? And I just kind of yearned for more participation. And I told myself at a very young age, at like 8 years old, that I was never going to do that to my future family. So that became my deep desire and my why. But that's my why. For you, whether it be your health, the health of your physical body, the health of your relationships, your career, your finances, whatever the case might be, if there's anything that's keeping you from getting what it is that you want, it's because you don't have a clear enough, first enough vision. And secondarily, you don't have, as I said before, a clear enough purpose or why. Okay? So you have to get very, very clear with why you're doing it. And a lot of times we create a story, and it's the story about why we can't have what it is that we want, right? Because when we were younger, we used to dream big, and we weren't aware of our so-called perceived limitations as adults, let's say. And so that story, though, is created as we get older, just about our limitations. And so typically we believe that going for whatever it is that we want is going to be more painful than staying comfortable right here. And a lot of times things will not change. People will not call me, will not reach out to me, ask for support, even though I could certainly help them in all instances of their life. But they typically will not ask me until they hit an emotional threshold where the present situation becomes more painful than the idea of moving forward and actually letting go of certain things. Does that make sense? So, that being said, vision first. Secondarily, purpose and why. Okay? I'm going to get into a little bit more in depth of all of these. But, as I continue to interview people and keep like digging in deeper, I started to realize we're in this moment now, whether you're watching this, right here in beginning of 2019, or you're watching this years from now, let's say, whatever the case might be, in this moment that you're watching this video, there's no better time and no more desperate of a time for us to get very, very clear on vision and purpose. I have people reaching out to me on a daily basis who just feel like they're adrift. And the reality of it is, with so much, distractions, notifications, things going on in our lives, it's very, very clear that if you don't have a vision and a purpose, then you're just going to fall into someone else's plan, right? So working for the man, or, if you're just kind of falling into reaction to whatever life throws at you. And I work with a lot of people who are caretakers, they're martyrs, they're people who, they're yes people who just like to, they find significance and self-worth through doing things for other people, and yet they're just kind of always on call, right? But at the end of the day, they feel empty and very unclear with where they're going in life. And a lot of times there's some type of vice that they use to kind of numb away that sense of emptiness. And whether it's food, alcohol, drugs, pornography, gambling, drugs, whatever the case might be, there can often be a vice that's filling that void up, if that makes sense, right? So, that being said, where your focus goes, your energy flows. So, whether you're focusing on all the crap going on in your life, chances are you're going to magnify it. if you're focusing on all that you can be grateful for, you're going to magnify that as well, right? So where your focus goes, your energy flows. I love that. I heard that from Tony Robbins. A lot of the things that I've learned over the years have come from the man, Tony Robbins. And so what I'd like to do, though, with my life plan, Tony Robbins has a program called The Time of Your Life. And I've gone through that thing probably a dozen times, and it's a lengthy program. I've done a lot of work with Tony Robbins. I've been a platinum partner. I've done the Unleash the Power Within 5 times, Date with Destiny twice, Business Mastery twice. I've done all his programs live, as well as so many other programs in personal development through Landmark, MITT, PSI, a lot of coaches. So I've done a lot of work because I just love it. I love wanting to be the very best person that I can be. And that this is what fuels my life and fuels my brand of level up lifestyle, is that a lot of times we can get super excited about shooting for the stars, and yet that incremental working your way up a lot of times is kind of brushed over, if you will. So we tend to forget, or we tend not to see. We only see the highlights right on social media of someone's successes, but we don't see all the challenges or the hurdles they had to get through, or their vision or their purpose. We don't see any of that stuff a whole lot, right? So that's what this video is all about. I want to support you in creating that. And so I do remember the first time I started doing these things through Tony Robbins' Time of Your Life program. Man, it was so hard. I was writing stuff that I didn't even really feel like I believed, right? I was kind of so down on myself. This was shortly after a divorce, and I was just so much in the hole that part of me kind of felt like I had nothing else to lose. The other part of me felt like I was never going to be able to climb out of the hole that I was in, right? So wherever this video finds you, please know that this is a process that you can come back to over and over and over and over and over. If you think this is going to be a one-stop shop, and you're going to figure it out, and then you're going to be off to the races, yes, this is going to definitely help. And yet you have to know that this is something I just come back and I kind of tweak and give various new iterations to year after year. Okay. And I've been doing this for a long time now. So first things first, vision. You have to pretend like you're a little kid on Christmas morning, if you will, just super excited about what you're going to get that's in the packages. You don't know yet, but you're just, I hope I get that, toy train, or I hope I get that, like My Little Pony, or whatever that might be, That wasn't my vision per se, but that train, I'll never forget that train. That being said, whether it's that, or I just remember coming out of college and high school just super psyched, like to take on the world, excited to like sink my teeth into it and run with it, right? And so that being said, a lot of times we start to lose that ability to dream. And so when it comes to vision, I need you to sit down with a pad of paper, a pen, pencil, whatever the case might be, something that you can capture, even just if you were to record an audio memo, and sit down, but turn off all other distractions. Maybe go out in nature or whatever the case might be. Turn off all distractions, and I want you to just dream and pretend as if you were a little child again. Put yourself in the 7-year-old shoes of your former self, and get back to that place where you were just excited about growing up and what all the possibilities would be when you were growing up. I just remembered I always I just had that desire, when I grow up, I'm going to take on this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do all these things. And here we are as adults, and a lot of times we get caught up into paying the bills and, working and, all the craziness of raising kids and having family and all that stuff, right? But that being said, have to go back and pretend like, you're shooting for the moon. And I remember I started writing things down the very first time I wrote this, process out. And I think I wrote down, I want to be the president of the United States. I want to experience zero gravity, I want to see, the earth, the earth's curvature. I want to do like a spacewalk, right? All these things that I may or may not do, who's to say, but so many of those things I was like, this is so stupid, but at the same time I had to kind of quiet the realist in me and just go for it, right? Just shoot for the moon, no pun intended, and just have fun with it, okay? So that's what I would, encourage you for the vision. And then your purpose is just, why is this important for you, okay? Why is achieving this vision important, okay? Now, with that vision, though, I will break things down into several groups, okay? The very first group is your health, right? So your physical body. You have to get very, very clear as to what is your vision for your physical body, For me, it wasn't just like the aesthetics. The aesthetics is always changing, to be honest, because we're always getting older. But I remember even in high school, I had a very clear vision of what I wanted to look like. I remember thinking, okay, in my 20s, I want to look like Brad Pitt from, Troy. Then I wanted to look like, in my 30s, I wanted to look like, who did I say? I forget. I know William Wallace from Braveheart was in there for my 40s. I want to look like James Bond in my 50s. In my 60s, I want to look like, I forget. But anyways, I had it all figured out. And so I was very, very clear about not only aesthetics, but also like the things I wanted to do. Okay. I want to be able to climb the mountains. I want to be able to hike and go trail running. I want to be able to just, but be also just physically available for my future family, be able to chase my future children around, be able to, chase my future wife around and tickle her, just, be goofy and wild and fun, but not feel like my physical body is a constraint that's keeping me from participating and having fun with my family, right? So, physical body, right? Second one is your mind and emotions. Why I say this for the second one is because I always think about emotional fitness. You need to think about who are you committed to being, because at the end of the day, right, the only thing we all know that we're very sure of is that all of us are going to come to the end of this experience. I was always raised to believe that we are spiritual ideas having a human experience. And so for me, I was raised to believe that life continues on. You just won't see it in this experience, but it goes somewhere else. But all things that we have here, we leave behind. So at my, celebration of life, service, if you will, no one's going to talk about all the things that I acquired. They're going to talk about how I showed up and all the way that I made them feel, right? And so through tragedy, through craziness, through the ups and the downs, the happy times, the sad times, do you have the emotional fitness, and are you committed to being someone that shows up? Okay, so mind and emotion. Third one is relationships. And I think that's not only your relationships, maybe intimately with your partner, your spouse, your kids, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with Mother Nature, with the universe, your relationships with food, that's a big one, and that sort of thing. So relationships, you want to get very, very clear with your vision on relationships. Next one is career and business. What's your vision? It's not only about going and working for someone for 30, 40, 50 years, right? And then retiring, and then you can live your life. Think about what you would, if you're not happy with what you're currently doing with your career or in your business, again, dream. What would be amazing? What makes your heart sing is a question that I often ask some clients. What do you do for work or play or whatever, where time just seems to fly. It's more of maybe it's a hobby, or maybe it's something that you're really good at, but you never really think that it could be a business, or that you can make money doing. Don't worry about those things, but just focus on what that might be, okay? The next one are your finances, okay? If you had, absolute financial freedom, what would you do with the money? How would you spend it? How would you invest it? How would you give it away? Okay, some good things to think about. The next one is social life, okay? I know I'm starting to run off the screen here. Social life, meaning like your family, your friends, fun. What does that look like? For me, I remember thinking, or not thinking, I wrote this list of 10 bullet points, if you will, that I wrote out. I know I'm being successful when ... And one of them was when I feel like every night is a Friday night. And so I wrote that when I was jobless. I quit my job. I was at the bottom of the barrel, so to speak. But I remember thinking, like, it would just be amazing if just every night could feel like a Friday night. And I've created that. That took a long time, but I've created that where I work for myself. I create my own, time frame. I create my own work day, if you will. So if I go out, for instance, what's tonight? Monday. 2 nights from now, I'm going out country line dancing, and it's going to be a late night, but it doesn't matter to me because I'll just change my my schedule and I'll sleep in, right? So not everyone has, of course, my schedule. If I had a spouse and kids at the time of this shooting, it would be totally different, right? A different chapter of my life. But anyways, you get to figure out what that fun, that family, the friends, that whole social life starts to look like. And then lastly, I got my little notes here, is very important. Spirituality. I don't know if you can read my writing, but spirituality, right? So whether it's, I don't know what your beliefs are, but if it's God, universe, Mother Nature, energy, your creator, what is your relationship and your vision for being a spiritual being? Like I said before, that being a spiritual idea or being that's having a human experience, that's my idea of spirituality. And I have a very clear vision around what that looks like for volunteering and going to church, and how God shows up in my life, and the time that I make for, speaking with my father, mother. And so that's hugely important. So those 7 areas are super important to build into your vision, okay? Because just like I started off with that, story around my mother, she was very, very clear of her vision as it pertained to like her social life, her family, her fun, her relationships. She was super strong in many different ways with her mind and emotion. She was, a career mom. Probably the most challenging job, if you will, on the planet is, managing family and raising children. I truly believe that. And she was extremely metaphysical and spiritual. That area that she lacked, though, that ultimately took her, from this experience at 61 years old, is that she did not have a clear vision of that physical body. And so it's not probably all that realistic that you're going to find that you're going to have balance amongst all of these. You're not going to be hitting on all cylinders on all 7 of these categories as it pertains to your ultimate vision, right? Because that's just not life. You're not going to find that balance because things are always going to be, you might be super successful with your physical health, and yet your business might be struggling, or your business might be struggling and, things are going crazy with the kids. Who's to say, right? But as long as you have a clear vision and a reason for that vision, that gives you your true north, if that makes sense, right? So let me give you some ideas real quick about my, let me scroll here, my ultimate vision. Now I wrote this, I need to actually update it. I wrote it a little while ago, so I need to maybe tweak it a little bit, but just to give you an idea, if you're kind of wondering, okay, I don't even know where to begin. This is what I wrote. It has a lot more to do with kind of my way of being than just like specific vision. I want to have this car or this house and this boat. It doesn't really have that per se. So here's a little excerpt from mine. I'm an extraordinarily loving man who loves God, people, family, friends, and ideas that make a difference. I'm a man that stands courageously in the face of his fears and breaks through. I love to discover and to create. I want my life to be an example of the highest standards for living while also being genuine and non-judgmental. The standard I must live by is to be outstanding. To be outstanding, it's not just a skill, it's heart. I love nature, mountains, ocean, being in the sunshine. I love when it's raining. I love animals. I particularly, though, love horses and dogs. Yeah, I do. I'm a passionate man who takes life's good and magnifies it and shares it openly, lovingly, passionately, and playfully with others. I'm a source of massive inspiration for millions of people, and I'm someone you can count on to do what is right. I'm a man of integrity. So that's not even half of it. But when I read that like hits my core, my heart, it kind of gets me going. It starts to juice me like, yeah, that's absolutely, that's what I'm standing for, right? So use that, as an example, just to start to kind of figure out your ultimate vision for your life. Okay. So again, at the end of it, another good what am I thinking of exercise to do is sometimes to kind of write your own eulogy. At the end of your life, what do you want people to have spoken about you? And so that's a great way of doing it. And then my ultimate purpose, let me get to that real quick. I wrote down, my purpose is to live life beyond human limitation. I'm committed to living my life based off the spiritual essence of who I authentically am and learning how I can evoke this out of others. I'm a man that is courageous, for I understand that through overcoming my past fears, only then have I experienced being completely alive. I must give 100% to living life, or I know I will feel like I'm settling. My purpose is to grow and to give. Ironically, the more I have given, the more I have grown. At the core of who I am is a boundless basis for unconditional love. So it goes on a little bit more, but again, that stuff starts to work in me to really get me excited, and I incorporate this into my daily rituals. So I'm reviewing this on a daily basis, if not at the very least a weekly basis, to just stay clear as to the direction I'm going on, especially when the storms of life are kind of rocking my boat, if that makes sense. So that all being said, when you're looking at actually setting your goals, because it's awfully hard to set goals, if you think about it, without having a very clear idea of where you're going, right? So again, if you're driving from New York to Los Angeles, right, you want to have a clear idea of why you're going there, where you're going, what's going to happen when you get there. And yet ultimately, you need to know the entire route from New York to LA before you start? No. And in truth, you actually only need to be able to see as far as your headlights will take you. Okay? So using that metaphor, I have a hard time, I have an idea of where I want to be like 10 years from now, 10 or 20 years from now. But then if you boil it down to like 5 or 7 years, like so much can change. Like 3 years is almost like as far as I can kind of really tangibly put things into my life, on the current trajectory that I'm on, However, things can completely change so quickly, right? So that being said, I'll do a 1 to 3 year vision or kind of goal setting workshop, if you will. But really what's most important for me is I break it down into like quarterly. So I'll have my 1 year, then I break it down into quarterly, and I'm really focused on just 90 days. Because in 90 days, I can figure out, okay, what needs to happen in month 1, month 2, month 3, if I want to get from here to here in 90 days. And then I break things down from monthly into weekly, and then weekly goes into hourly. And I'm actually time blocking activities onto my calendar. So that can seem a little overwhelming if this is a brand new process for you, because that was totally overwhelming for me. And I know for the first, I would say, 1.5 to 2 years that I was working for myself, and I had started gyms in St. Louis, kind of serving people similar to my mom in her honor. I would come home after serving people. I knew how to kind of train them in the gym, and yet I'd come home and I'd have no idea what I was doing. I floated for, a good 18 to 24 months because I didn't know. It was just almost so much to do. I just was overwhelmed, and what I would end up going to is like ESPN, watching Oprah, watching Ellen, just watching TV. And then, I didn't get anything done, but I'll do better tomorrow, right? So it's taken years to get these things figured out, But for me, when you start thinking about goals, I like to get clear with for 2019, since we're just starting, and this is January 14th that I'm shooting this 2019. I will get very clear as to my vision and my purpose for each of these, okay, these 7 categories. But then for 2019, rather than setting specific goals just yet, I'll actually set objectives. Okay, objectives, think of them as just more kind of umbrella type, broad stroking objectives, right? So for my physical body this year, I just want to vastly improve my mobility, my flexibility, my strength, my gut health, my skin quality, things like that, okay? That's not very specific, it's not very quantifiable, but those are objectives, right? And then I have probably 3 to 5 clear goals that I'm heading towards to make sure that I'm moving my physical body closer and closer to the vision that I have for it. Does that make sense? So, but the cool thing about this though is that, say I've got five goals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and say I get injured or something has come up, and say I only achieve 2 and 5. I only achieve 2 of my 5, okay? I can still feel like, I still moved myself progressively in a positive way, making progress with my greater objective of increasing my physical body and moving myself down the road, where the slippery slope with goals is that goals can change. Sometimes goals can be so big that we ultimately realize we've kind of overleapt ourselves. We've gone too far, and it seems a little overwhelming. You have to always feel like you can change, the goals. It's not so much an issue if you don't hit a goal, because those are a lot of times arbitrary and just we're kind of throwing darts in the dark, if you will, kind of guessing a lot of times. It's just more important, not so much that you hit the goal, but that you are making progress. Because like I said, at the end of the day, it's not about the achievement of the goal that you're getting. It's about who you become in the process of achieving that goal, right? Because I don't really ultimately care whether I achieve this or that. We can like to pretend we really care as we play that comparison game of, me versus the person that's killing it on Instagram. You know what? At the end of the day, though, the people that are surrounded by you, that they experience you and you experience them, it's really all about who you become. And so, that all being said, with objectives and then specifically with goals, I won't end up I'll set maybe 5 goals, but I'll maybe only focus on 1 or 2 of them for the first 90 days. Because I don't need to go for all 5 of them, because I'll probably get overwhelmed and I say I can't do this and I'll give up, right? I do that all the time. I kind of bite off more than I can chew because I'm a dreamer in many different ways. I'll shoot just for one that's super easily attainable, and I'll go for that. But I'll check in on these and the specific goal very often, because as most people do when they set New Year's goals, if you will, or resolutions, if you will, they set them around the beginning of the year. And when's the next time they look at them? Not till typically until like the end of the year, when time has flown by and they're like life got away from them, and then they hate on themselves. And all they end up doing when you start ripping on yourself is just tearing down your own self-worth and your own self-esteem. And that does no one any good, right? So that being said, chunk it down into smallest little bite-sized pieces. And so right now I'm doing this 100-day challenge at 100daychallenge.com, and it helps me just chunk things down into daily actionable items so I don't get overwhelmed, and I just slowly, incrementally, chip away at my goals. And so with greater kind of like checking in on your goals, the more often you can check in on your goals with greater kind of specificity, the greater the probability that you'll have of achieving them. Does that make sense? So think about it in terms of like weight loss goals or whatever. If you weigh yourself at the beginning of the year and then you don't weigh yourself until the end of the year, like what are your chances of really keeping tabs on how you're doing, right? Chances are you'll be exactly where you were at the beginning of the year or worse, right? Now, if you're weighing every single day, that can also be a slippery slope. But if you're weighing every single week and you're just monitoring, oh, I need to make a little tweak here, I had too much dessert that one night, or let's celebrate what we did, you can kind of just see 52 check-ins a year is going to keep your weight and your health on pretty good direction, if you will. So anyways, I hope that is helpful. This is the ultimate plan, and what I like to do is once I have written this out, and I'll post a blog about this so you can kind of look at a little bit more detail for mine. I read this every morning, and so it's part of my daily ritual. And so if you don't have a daily ritual, it's super important to have that. Now, this can be long, you might just want to hit little bullet points, or maybe just highlight the key points so you can kind of skim it, right? You could do it really, really fast. It doesn't matter that you read it day after day, line by line, word by word. It's important that you get the essence and that you just remind yourself the direction you're going, because as they say, that if you don't have a plan, then if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. So that being said, have this plan. It makes all the world a difference, because at the end of the day, if you don't do this type of stuff, this is why all the people that are successful in life have this level of detail and specificity and connection with their heart, because this is what drives them to do what they are doing. This is the real work that needs to go on below the surface for you achieving your health goal, your relationship goal, your career goal, your spirituality goal, your family goal. So anyways, I hope it's been helpful. Would love for you to add any comments or questions underneath the YouTube video here, and then please give me a thumbs up if you like it, and I'm always open to constructive criticism, or please subscribe to my Level Up Lifestyle channel. So till next time, having a blessed and awesome 2019. And again, if you want to reach me, feel free to reach me at johnny@johnnyking.com. All right, see you guys.